everyone. Welcome to the monthly Beyond Zero Emissions Discussion Group. Firstly, we would like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the lands of the Kulin Nation and pay our respects to their elders past and present. We'd like to thank the University of Melbourne Energy Institute, the MEI, our Zero Carbon Australia project partners for this great venue. For those of you who haven't been to one of our discussion groups before, BDAV is a climate solutions think tank and research organisation. Our goal is to transform Australia from a 19th century fossil fuel-based economy to a 21st century renewable energy powered clean tech economy. Our projects include Zero Carbon Australia Research, Repower Australia Talks, Zero Carbon Communities, media work, education programs and much more. We're always looking for more volunteers, so if you'd like to be involved, come and talk to us afterwards. The discussion group is a forum for climate change solutions with presentations by experts in their field, and it is held on the first Monday of every month. Before I introduce the speaker, I'd like to introduce Vanessa Petrie, our Chief Executive Officer, who has a few short announcements to make. Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening, and I can't wait to hear the presentation. I wanted to invite you all, if you're not a member of Beyond Zero Emissions and you are really passionate about climate solutions, actually rolling up the sleeve and doing the research into how we can get off carbon, to consider becoming a member of Beyond Zero Emissions. So the practical side of things, membership is $30, but what it really means for Beyond Zero Emissions is we really grow, I guess, our community. For governance, that's a really great thing because then we have a bigger and a diverse group of people to put forward for our board that governs us, and we also can look for other opportunities for how we can work with our members to really guide the research that we do and the work that we do. So if you are interested in having a think about it, you can email info@bze.org.au and we can have a chat and answer any questions that you might have about becoming a member of BZE. And two very quick announcements I wanted to share with you that soon we'll be releasing two reports. So on Friday the 14th of July we'll be releasing our Zero Carbon Community Guide, and it's a guide for communities that want to put their hand up and commit to going to zero emissions in 10 years. It's a guide to help communities get started, and so look out for that. It will be on our website, but we will look to have a bigger celebratory event with the BZE community in early August. And in early August we'll also be releasing our report on zero carbon cement. And I don't know if you ever think much about cement in your life. I didn't really much before I started BZE, but now I can't stop seeing it everywhere. It's going to be a really unique and fabulous report. We truly believe that this is a world first. We've looked at how you can manufacture cement without carbon emissions, and the world, 8% of all the world's carbon emissions come directly from manufacturing cement, which is really a huge amount. It's even bigger than the global car fleet. So please do look out for that one. And cement is incredibly interesting and it's everywhere, and you cannot live a single day without it touching your life in some way, shape or form. So look out for that, and stay tuned for the Melbourne launch. Thank you.
Many of you would have been here for Brendan Condon's presentation a few months ago about the Cape Sustainable Housing Development. Tonight we meet the architect behind the 10-star housing at the Cape. Architect Tim Adams has over 40 years of building design experience and is at the forefront of zero energy and energy efficient house design. Through his company, F2 Design, he's providing sustainable, fully passive, all-electric dwellings in Australia that do not need heating or cooling. Tim will present the house with no bills. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you very much. Just a quick correction there. We didn't design the 10-star house at Cape Patterson, but we did get the design to 10 stars. We've done other 10-star designs, and I'll be telling you a little bit about that process for the project down at the Cape, so hang on with that one. Thanks for coming out. I got an email from one of my clients last week saying we were going to come and see you on Monday night, but we're going to go and see Ross Garno instead. So you guys are either here tonight because you think I've got something valuable to tell you, or you didn't know that Ross Garno was on at the same time. Who knows Debbie Dooley? Any hands? No one. Excellent. Okay, well I can answer that for you tonight. She's somebody who, an audience like this might not have heard about, but I think you really should, because it throws a different light onto an understanding about energy efficiency and renewable energy generation, and that it's not just tree huggers and greenies who are thinking about this sort of stuff these days. Yep. Which we roll it. There we go. Yeah, roll it back. Okay, everyone knows why we're doing this, but that image has been in some of my presentations over the last few years, because the Dunk Island airstrip will certainly be one of our facilities that will go underwater if we don't do something about it. And we know, as 350.org told us a while ago, that we just have to stop using fossil fuels, and we can't use what we already know about, yet alone worry about discovering more fossil fuel reserves or exploiting ones like we know about up in Queensland. This is to try and confuse people, get you thinking about what this is all about. I wrote an article back in February 2014 which looked at an understanding that sustainability might be considered as an extreme right-wing philosophy. The reason for coming to that understanding is that people who embrace sustainability, embrace the idea of being self-sufficient, going off-grid themselves, making their household situation one where they are totally self-sufficient and not reliant on the community, they become the ultimate lifters. You know, Joe Hockey was out there defining us as lifters and leaners. Well, people who have become totally self-reliant and look after their energy at home are the lifters. And so it's an idea of whether this is self-sufficiency or whether we depend on government. The government really are dead scared about people becoming self-sufficient because they've got nothing to hold over you. There's no fear of being held to the issue of rising power supply or the reliability of power supply. If you become self-sufficient, you won't be voting for them because you don't need them anymore, and that's something that certainly is out there for everyone to understand. Who's Debbie Dooley? She was a founding member of the Tea Party, the extreme right-wing American group who were prevalent in the lead up to the previous election in the States. They lost a bit of traction this time because there was some other bloke there. But they're out there. They are hard on free enterprise, right-wing extremists potentially. But Debbie Dooley was thinking about all of that, and she said, well, how come we've got governments in the States who have policy and programs in place which still subsidise old organisations and put an impasse in the way of the uptake of new technologies, new sustainable energy developments, household renewable energy with PV. And so she then became a founder of the Green Tea Coalition. Again, interesting stuff. So we should be aware of that, and when people say sustainability is for tree huggers, well, it's absolutely not. The car I was driving in 2000 was a 2 litre petrol car. It was running at about 9 litres per 100 kilometres. The car I drive now is a 1.5 litre turbo diesel. I would have gone electric, except the distances that I travel make that unfeasible because I haven't got enough money to buy a Tesla. But that'll happen soon. But even with what I'm doing, I'm now using almost half the petrol that I did in 2000. Renault example here is developing new technologies. They've got all electric cars, but they've got an example here of a gas hybrid which will do 1 litre per 100 kilometres. That's an 89% reduction on what I would have been using. Then all this technology is improving to get it back to the household level with the energy of the building fabric of our houses. When the government did their regulatory impact statement for the introduction of improving energy efficiency of houses, they assessed that we were building houses at about 2.5 stars on the NatHERS scale, which in energy, the NatHERS scale looks at the amount of energy per square metre of energy that a house needs to keep it within the thermostat settings of reasonable comfort. A 2.5 star house uses 321 megajoules per square metre. A 6-star house, introduced as the minimum standard in 2010, uses 114 megajoules per square metre. A wonderful change, a wonderful improvement. And we are supposedly building to 6 stars at the moment. However, don't be alarmed, it's not always happening for a number of reasons. The building industry attention to detail, tradesmen not being educated enough to know exactly what they should be doing on site means that not all houses are constructed to the level that was assumed at the design stage when the design was done by an architect or a designer and the energy rating was done. That doesn't mean the energy rating system is crap, it just means that there are parts of the total delivery process that need to be improved. And we've found out more recently that there are some volume builders who have discovered an avenue through the regulatory compliance called the reference building method of assessing thermal performance of a building fabric, which is gaming the system and is possibly even delivering 3.5, 4-star designs, let alone what they build. Now, I've been involved in, as the chair of the Sustainability Hub at the Building Designers Association, in discussions with CSIRO, with Sustainability Victoria, with the Ministry for Planning, and with the Victorian Building Authority, and just in the last month there's been serious understanding about what all that means, and hopefully a remedy is underway. But if anyone's considering entering into an agreement with a volume builder, don't ask whether the building is regulatory compliant, because that's what they've put on their marketing brochures more recently. They say they're regulatory compliant, they don't say that they're 6 stars. So ask them whether it's been designed to a 6-star standard, not just to a regulatory compliant level. An 8-star house, which we reckon is easily achievable, runs at 54 megajoules per square metre. That's a 53% improvement on the 6-star, let alone what we were doing in 2000. And a 9-star house, which needs a bit more finessing and is probably where I'd suggest we should be heading. Although we know how to design 10-star houses, I don't think we actually need to go there, and I'll explain why. But a 9-star house, I think, is achievable reasonably, and at 25 megajoules per square metre, that's a 78% improvement on the 6-star standard, which is our minimum regulatory level. A couple of snapshots of books in my library. Steve Sockley back in 75. The Energy Efficiency Housing publication put out by the Federal Department back in 85, and then Your Home, which has been around for a while and keeps getting revised, first put out in 2005. It's just a snapshot to say, if people tell you that all this is new and difficult, no. I studied architecture at RMIT back in the mid-70s. We had the first oil crisis come through then. Energy security was the issue, not necessarily so much energy efficiency, but it was part of it. We had a huge opportunity to do something then. But Beyond Zero Emissions have added to that level of knowledge that we have. The buildings plan that came out 3 years ago or so is a fantastic publication. Everyone here probably is aware of that, but if you're not, there's a copy out on the desk on the way out. It was a fantastic piece of work that looked at our housing stock and mostly at looking at what we need to do to get current stock up to speed, regardless of what's happening when we build new buildings. And they identified that, yeah, we can do a whole lot of stuff, and yes, it will cost some money, $40 billion over 10 years. What sort of job stimulation would that cause? $40 billion of jobs and growth. My goodness. Oof, you just get excited about that sort of stuff. LED lightings use 80% less energy than the old dichrotics we were using. New technology is becoming available. The Daikin US7 has a coefficient of performance of 6, which means that you get 6 kilowatts of conditioning into the house for every kilowatt of electricity you use. So COP, remember that whenever you're looking at any conditioning appliances, be alert to the COP. Hot water delivered with heat pumps now, with products from Japanese Sanden product is really good. There are others, but they use about 70% less than the old resistance elements that we used to have in the bottom of electric water tanks. One of the striking things, and it goes to my thesis of being well informed, is that the understanding was that if people had point of use feedback from their household use, just by having the information, not by doing any changes to the house, not by putting in an induction stove, just by knowing how they were using the power, they save 70% of the power. So if somebody tells you it's hard, it'll be costly, it'll impact on housing affordability, what they're really saying is, I just haven't bothered to know what the opportunities are. It's just demonstrating ignorance if they say things are going to cost more and impact on housing affordability. I love the ATA. I'm a member. I contribute to Sanctuary magazine and to Renew. But this slide was presented at the Sustainable Living Festival this year, and I was really disappointed to see it. We don't need people who are trying to do the right thing to put out information which is not well informed. The slide there says that, it asks the question, what is wrong with NatHERS? And it's suggesting that it's a features-based assessment, not performance-based. Well, I'd suggest that that's an incorrect statement. And then there's poor compliance standards, which I've already mentioned. Yes, there's a design assessment, but then it has to be carried through. But don't say that there's a problem with NatHERS because of downstream effects. It says it's biased towards winter performance. Well, that's just out and out wrong. It assesses houses in all climate zones around Australia, from high altitudes in Tasmania to Darwin and tropical north. It looks at a house performance based on the climate data that's available for every area of Australia, and it looks at the heating and the cooling. It has different assessments about what a comfortable temperature is within those climate zones. The thermostat setting for Darwin is a higher temperature than a thermostat setting for Melbourne or for Tasmania. It understands.
What is that?
The National House Energy Rating Scheme. It's the program which has been developed for use across the country. The calculation engine is called the Cheneth engine. It was developed by CSIRO, and then the front end software interface for users. One was developed by Sustainability Victoria, which is the first-rate program. Another one was developed by Holger Wilrath up in Queensland, which is called BERS, and the third one is Accurate, which Hearn Scientific put together. The one that's used in Victoria the most is First Rate, because it was developed by Sustainability Victoria and was promoted to Victorians most widely. So it tells us how much energy the house will use. And then the third statement there, purchasers don't know how a house will perform, and they're then suggesting that the solution to that is mandatory disclosure. Well, yeah, mandatory disclosure is something that COAG agreed to about 5 years ago, and then everyone went a bit weak at the knees about it. The state government here in Victoria has developed the residential efficiency scorecard, which is in trial at the moment, which might lead to mandatory disclosure. But it's disheartening when you see things like that. Everybody involved with knowledge about improving the situation should be talking positively about what they are doing and not denigrate what shortcomings that might exist in other programs. And just quickly on that same theme, last week I'm aware of a training program that the Green Star people were delivering, and the presenter there said it's almost impossible to get a rating over 7 stars. Well, to somebody who was in the audience who gave me this information, who has done 10-star designs themselves, you just throw your hands in the air that somebody from the Green Buildings Council, doing the Green Buildings Council training, would be so poorly informed about what is going on out there. And he was an engineer, and he said that passive gain wasn't really all that important because he was an engineer, and you solve problems by putting in efficient appliances. That's what not all engineers, but that one did. Certainly in line with the understanding, certainly in this room, gas has to be gotten rid of, basically. But my position is that I know my family put a gas space heater into a house which previously had a slow combustion heater, and it was seen as being wonderful innovation back in 1968. And yet it made the house more comfortable. But beyond just a space heater, after that, Victorians kept building crap houses and putting furnaces in them, gas-fired, air-blown furnaces, to make houses, just badly performing houses, comfortable. So the natural gas that, yes, seemed like some wonderful thing for us back then, is actually driven the delivery of bad houses for over a generation. If we had responded back then and with the oil prices to doing something about it, we'd be in a totally different situation now. But we're getting there. Battery storage is on our doorstep. It's not something that you would do today because you're going to make money out of it, but it's becoming a really serious consideration. There are lots of different technologies out there. There's lithium ion, which is probably gaining as much traction as any, but there are sodium batteries, which have a much bigger footprint, so you need to accommodate them. But they are doing. They can be discharged basically down to zero without affecting the life of the battery, and they don't need temperature-controlled positions to be located. So. Keep an eye out on all the different battery technologies, but even with Tesla, their Powerwall 2 is available today. for $8,000, which is the same price as their Powerwall 1, which was only launched a couple of years ago, and in 2 years you're getting twice as much storage capacity for the same amount of money. It's phenomenal, the change. The really interesting thing about the Powerwall 2 is they've put out a warranty that it will store 37,800 kilowatts of electricity for the life of the system. When you divide that kilowatt hour into $8,000, it comes out to 24 cents a kilowatt hour. What do you pay for your power now?
28.
The figures are starting to look really interesting. So, with all that background, we then look at getting our buildings as efficient as we possibly can. The 10-star challenge was something that I initiated when I was the president at the BDAV back 8 years ago. It was an idea to get designers, energy raters, architects, anybody who had a bit of an interest to take the time to do a bit of their own research, to understand what it takes to design a house that doesn't need any heating or cooling at all. It was never expected that we would see lots of them, and I personally suggest that you're probably pretty silly to do it, and especially now with the storage capacity that's becoming available and the plummeting price of PV generation. There's a sweet spot around probably 8.5 to 9 stars, and then the amount of energy that you need to keep that house comfortable can easily be generated on site. So it's been now been going for that time. Apart from trying to improve the knowledge base of the people on the ground doing the work, it was also seen as being something to show that the Building Designers Association was a lead organisation in sustainable design. The BDAV is an national accrediting body for energy raters in Australia, which is carried out under the auspice of the NatHERS administrator in Canberra. It was a vehicle to drive knowledge further, get it promoted amongst the community. What it did do initially is that it got media coverage. The word did get out, and designs that have participated in the program have gone on to achieve good things on the ground. The Richmond Green was one of a multi-storey project in Richmond. It's received numerous awards since, and it showed that a dense urban redevelopment site could have I think about a 9-storey building that delivered really high performance. What my own work did was understand that if you design something to 10 stars, which might need some more exotic specification of increased thermal mass with reverse brick veneer walls and a few things like that, if you get the basics right, you can strip some of those things out and still achieve 8-star level with volume builder standard specifications. There are myths about high performance houses, that it affects housing affordability, and that it potentially delivers an aesthetic which is confronting to some people. Well, the entries into the 10-star challenge have shown that you can have anything from, yes, some sort of cutting edge design, but back through to hip groove brick veneer houses. It's not, a high performance house doesn't need to have any specific design appeal or aesthetic. It's all to do with just getting windows in the right size and the right place and those sorts of things. It can look like anything you would like. We've now had the 6-star since 2010. The NCC, which is the building regulation in Australia, used to be on a 1-year anniversary for introducing amendments. As of this year, it's gone to a 3-year anniversary, which is probably good, because changing methods and specifications every year to respond to amendments to the NCC was a little bit taxing for everyone to keep abreast of. We've now gone to a 3-year anniversary, which means that the first time we will have a chance to improve or raise the threshold will be in NCC 2019, and there's a lot of pressure out there not to increase stringency for 2019, which will mean that the next opportunity is 2022. That'll be 12 years since we had the 6 stars. That's a huge time, and so if anybody talks to you, if you've got any chance of lobbying anybody who's got any influence, get out there and tell them that we really need to be looking at increasing stringency in the 2019 version. Okay, this design was a design that we won the 10-star challenge with in 2012. So you can see that I introduced the program, I wrote the rules, and then I won them. This exercise was, and thanks to ACDC, an opportunity to try and again reinforce my driving position that high performance doesn't need to attract a huge cost premium, and what that means absolutely at the simplest level is that energy efficiency is directly related to the surface area of a house. The heat transfers in or out, heating or cooling, through the walls, the roof and the floor. If you create a geometry which has the highest enclosed volume per square metre of surface area, you're going to be designing a highly energy efficient envelope. But hey, it also means you're using less materials in building those walls. So it's actually cheaper to build a high performance house because of the reduced amount of surface area that you're building. If you take that to the extreme, you'd build a sphere. Well, that's not going to be too cost effective to build. So I come away in the hierarchy of different geometries, and the next one is a cube. This design is not quite a cube because we would have had to have made it 8 metres tall, because the footprint is 8 metres by 8 metres. That dimension accommodates on the ground floor, as you can see, totally adequate kitchen. I would suggest a decent dining table, a living room arrangement with good seating capacity. It has a powder room downstairs and a European laundry on that ground floor. It has an airlock at the entry, quite important for high performance, to be able to stop the air leaking out from the envelope when you go in and out of the front door. What I've certainly found in the experience of living in a reasonably high performance house is the loss of air from the envelope through the front door is not as important if you've got a good thermal mass in the building as it is if you've got a house that doesn't have good thermal mass, which the energy rating software perhaps doesn't recognise as well as it could, and the passive house people totally misread, absolutely and completely misread. If you've got a lightweight building fabric where some passive gain comes in and warms the air in the house and warms a lightweight building fabric, if you then open a door and you lose that warm air in winter, then yes, you've lost energy out of the building. if it's a high thermal mass building and the sun's come in and warmed up the concrete floor and high mass walls, you open the door and you haven't lost all of that energy. So there's a very different situation between high mass buildings and low mass buildings, and it's one of my hobby horses, and as I say, the passive house people haven't recognised that very well at all. They say you've got to seal the building up so that you don't lose the air. Well, that horses for courses there, and by sealing buildings up too much, the way that passive house prescribes, you've then got to understand that you've got a problem with moisture control and condensation. So you have to introduce a heat recovery ventilation system. So simple floor plan. First floor, 8 metres by 8 metres. You can have 3 bedrooms, 4 by 4 bedrooms, very generous bedrooms, or you can have different partition layouts. Because this was the Tensei has done dirt cheap, there's only 1 bathroom in the powder room downstairs. We've had this design built by others to their own requirements. One in Muralbark, which was built as by a small developer who he was doing it to generate a profit for himself, and the market that he thought he was selling into, he said he had to have 2 bathrooms upstairs, so the plan was modified a little bit to get the extra bathroom in, and that was a lightweight structure, and it was built at 8-star performance. So there's somebody building very cost effectively, doing it to generate money for himself as a developer, and he's built one of these and made a little bit of money out of it, not a huge amount, but has done it on a commercial basis. The roof form is something that we played around with. A simpler and cheaper roof form would have been just a hipped roof. And we had that there first. When we played around with it, we found that the roof form that we have there, and you can see in the bottom sections, provided a row of clerestory windows above the first floor, which delivered north passive gain into both the stairwell and the bedroom on the southeast corner. Before we had that row of north light coming in and getting that passive gain into the back of the first floor plan, we'd been using triple glazed windows to get it to 10 stars. When we put those extra windows in and got that north passive gain in, we could dial it back to double glazed windows. So we've got 10-star performance with double glazed windows. This design then, with the Muralbark house and with other iterations, when we dial it back to single glazed timber windows, the worst we can do is 8.2 stars. It's all to do with the proportion of that surface area. It's getting the right amount of passive gain in, you've got it. The other one thing that the energy rating software doesn't recognise as fully as it could as well is that the thermal chimney effect that you can see there with the arrows on the bottom left is a passage for summer night purge ventilation. In our climate, we get good diurnal variation between night and day temperatures. Not quite as much in the denser urban settings where you've got the heat island effect, which keeps the roads and the buildings keep the temperature in the urban setting a little bit warmer overnight. But even so, we get enough cool air, except for some of the very hottest nights in summer, for there to be cooler air outside, and we want to be able to get that through the house and to cool it down in summer. Most importantly, because what we've done for winter performance is whack more insulation on the ceiling. We're starting our designs with R4. Sometimes we'll go to 5 or 6. I would hope never above 6. But even with R4 on the ceiling, it's there to stop heat getting out of the building in winter. It does exactly the same thing in summer. You're aware that, but a bit of heat does get into the building, and it's trapped in by the insulation that we've put on the ceiling. So the only thing we can then do is make sure that we've got exhaust points at the highest level, and have sloping ceilings so that you get a convection flow travelling up the ceiling and then out through high level exhaust points. They can be windows, they could be some sort of opening vent system, but you want to get that air that's up at that high level, because otherwise it's trapped under the insulation that you've put in. We put another entry in 13 and another one in 14, and we were finalists, but we didn't win it in those years. But those are just images to show that again, a high performance house can look anything you want it to look like. The Nissan house was named that way rather than a Nissan hut, because it's the sort of house that a person with a Nissan Leaf would want to live in. And that exercise was to look at, we'll put a roof over the top and down the east and west elevations, so you don't have any east or west walls, and we just have a north wall and a south wall, and we put lots of glazing on the north wall and not so much on the south wall. And it worked a treat. It was fine. So again, we limited the wall surface area, and I think we had R6 in that roof, and probably only R3 in the walls. So again, we've pushed and pulled, we've plotted, we've had fun, and shown that you can do it in pretty much any way you would like. This is the 10-star house down at Cape Patterson. It's for those who haven't been down there, go. The project down there has been driven by Dennis Condon, who presented here previously. It's Brendan Condon. It's been a work of love and endurance by him over 15 years. It's been helped along more recently with input of some capital assistance by the Small Giants group, who are doing all sorts of wonderful things. They set an objective, so the Small Giants and Martin Builders, who are down there, set the objective that they wanted to build a house that operated at the 10-star level. They had a design done, not by us, but we had been retained as a specialist consultant on energy rating for the Cape project, and they'd been working on this design, and another energy rater, a highly respected person, had been assisting with it, and they were getting it to 9.2, 9.3, and apparently someone said, mate, perhaps give Tim a call, which they did, and as soon as I saw it, I identified, and clearly in my mind, that there were things about that design on the left which were making it hard, and I think the person who'd been advising them up to there certainly wasn't limited in their understanding of what was needed to get to 10 stars. But I think they just probably weren't quite as forthright as they needed to be with the architect, to tell the architect that there were some things in the design that were working against a 10-star result. So if we go through those items, one was that there's a passage there on the north elevation between the kitchen and the master bedroom, and so they had a non-habitable space occupying prime north elevation where you can get good passive gain in. Item 1. Item 2, they had a greenhouse. Again, an interesting device that you can use in a high performance house, but usually where you've got views to the south. So projects that we've been involved with with good, along the surf coast with good ocean views, there's always a dilemma there that you've got this wonderful view, but you put windows in that south elevation and you're just losing conditions through it all the time. That's an opportunity, but yeah, maybe you put a greenhouse on the north side and get the heat transfer from the heat trap on the north side and get that into the house. You don't do it when you've got good north orientation. So got rid of the greenhouse. They had a fixed eave that projected all the way out to the ends of those wing walls. That was great in summer, but when you see the elevation, you'll see that there are some highlight windows there that were being shaded through autumn and spring. We need as much heat into the house as we possibly can, all the way through to November. So you've got a fixed eave that's set to give you summer shade. It's penalising you through autumn and spring to stop the top part of a window just under the eave from getting sun coming through it. So it's a north-facing window in shade. It thinks it's a south-facing window. So north-facing eaves need the best to get the ultimate, and 10 stars is the ultimate. You need to have adjustable eaves on the north side. The bedroom, number 2, was located on the southeast corner. It was located there for totally legitimate, sensible, functional reasons. It was just inside the front door. It was seen as being having a home office potential, so that you could introduce people into the house, take them into the home office without needing to come through the rest of the house. Totally legitimate function for a house, but that bedroom wasn't getting enough passive gain. There were big south side windows, so we suggested that they be reduced in size. There were robes between the 2 bedrooms on the west end of the house, which again was causing that bedroom in the southwest corner not to have enough passive gain. Interestingly, the architect had put a wood fire into the house when they'd been told they were designing a house that didn't need any heating. So we said, get rid of that. And so then I just did that quick yellow trace sketch and over the top and shot it back to them and said, here, if you reorganise the plan, yes, we've lost the function of the little home office inside the front door, but we've got the bedroom 2 with a big north-facing window. You've got the bathroom on the southeast corner with a window to the east, which gets some nice early morning sun into the bathroom before you have your shower. We got rid of the fixed eave over the top. We got rid of the glass house, and we said make the robes between bed 3 and bed 4, make it tight, so that as far as the thermal air volume of those bedrooms is concerned, you get the air transfer going over the top. Yes, you lose the acoustic separation, but if they wanted to get it to 10 stars, these were the things that they needed to do. This is a very quick one that you can't read, but it just shows some of the stages that we went through to allocate different specifications for all of these different things, looking at different window supplies to get windows with different attributes. One thing that is often misunderstood is what a high performance window entails. A lot of people see the U value, which is the insulative performance, and seeing a low number, which says it's got good isolation performance as far as the insulation is concerned. They don't understand what the solar heat gain coefficient figure says, and often good U value windows also have poor solar heat gain. And in our climate zone, so that's fine for Queensland, but in our climate zone we want to get every little bit of passive gain in that we can. So you need to have a glazing that has high solar heat gain. To that end, clear glass is what you want, tinted glass or glass with films on it be careful. They usually reduce the solar heat gain coefficient and don't do what you need them to do. Those glasses that stop solar heat gain are good in hot climates, but in ours we don't want them. What we want to do is have clear glass, get as much heat in, and solve the summer problem by having blinds or adjustable leaves to stop the sun hitting the glass in the first place. So you go through all of those things, and you change one attribute, and one of the rooms becomes worse in summer than it had been, or vice versa. Insulation under a slab was a really interesting thing in this exercise. When we first got it to 10 stars, we had R.7 under the slab. If we went R.8, it improved the winter performance, but it disconnected the slab from the linkage to the good stable ground temperature underneath. And so our summer performance, if we went to 0.7 to 0.8, our summer performance fell away just slightly, and we went from 10 back to 9.9. If we did it the other way around, we improved if we had lower R.6, we improved the summer performance, but we were losing heat into the ground in winter. So we found R.7 was the perfect value for insulation under the slab. The architect then wanted to change some of the windows, the proportions of them, just for the architectural aesthetic that they were looking to achieve. And they said, we've kept the same window area, but we've made them, I think it was taller rather than broader. And we said, okay, we'll test it, see what happens. And when we did, we found that what we needed and the design that has actually been constructed has R.5 under the kitchen area and no insulation under the rest of the house, under the kitchen living zone. So what the energy rating software does, if used with a bit of experience and understanding of how to use it, it's looking at the house in a very detailed way, taking into consideration all the attributes of heat loss, heat gain, shading, all of them, and if you change one, it can impact on other parts of the design. So you can have your general principles, always start with good general principles, but don't accept them as dogma. You have to go into a design and play with it. That's what the north side looked like, and you can see there the eave now doesn't have a roof over it, which it did when we saw the design first up. It's got seasonal shading either by the way of a shade cloth device or by deciduous grapevine. So that's been a fantastic experience. Go and see the Cape project. They've got a community garden down there, which, from memory, is going to produce $280,000 worth of produce for the community, which is just an amazing thing. And they will be there. They haven't got gas on site. They've got a covenant for the designs, which means that they'll all be at least 7.5 stars. They will all have photovoltaic generation on them. They will have heat pump hot water. They will have, where they're needed, high performance reverse cycle units with high COP. And the understanding is that project will be potentially in total will be energy positive as opposed from just being energy neutral. So it can be done. It's being done there on a commercial basis by people who are really dedicated to see good things happening. The House with No Bills, which was the cover story of Renew 120, the ATA magazine, is my own house. I had the opportunity 10 years ago to purchase a site down on the Surf Coast, when a client of mine said he was going to subdivide the farm that they had down there. And so I had the opportunity to do something in line with what I'd been telling clients they ought to do, and therefore I had to make sure that I actually put my meagre money where my mouth was. Didn't have a huge amount of money, and didn't want to be saddled with a mortgage. So we bought 16 acres for $240,000, which was pretty attractive, and wouldn't be repeatable today, because actually it was an interesting study. In fact, that my client, who had the farm there, was a psychiatrist, Collins Street Medico. And he had 6 lots that he was going to sell, and he didn't give them to any real estate agent to sell. He sourced the purchases himself, because he was still occupying the house across the road from where we are, and so he quite clearly did psychological profiling on all of his prospective neighbours. So luckily, he must have thought that I wasn't around the bend too far to be acceptable as a neighbour. So we had this opportunity, and I said, okay, well, we need to demonstrate what is possible. As I said, we weren't wanting to spend huge amounts of money, but we did want a house that worked well. And for me, I think I've still got a while left, and people seem to value the knowledge that I can bring to projects. I'm not about to retire tomorrow, but a lot of my clients are, and by doing something like this, you can place yourself in a position where, yes, it's good for the environment, what you achieve, but again, from the right leaning perspective, you set yourself up so that you control your household utilities. They're totally within your control. You know what it means, you know how much it's going to cost, and in this instance we were lucky or knowledgeable enough that we were in a position at the time to take advantage of the premium feed-in tariff, and we sell enough electricity to generate money that pays for our council rates. So we've got no water rates because we're not on the water grid. We've got no sewer rates. We've got no electricity bill, and we sell enough electricity to pay for the council rates. So that's normally why it's called the house with no bill. It's not a square, as you saw from the elevation over the picture, but it's a relatively simple rectangle, and similar to the Cape Patterson 10-star house. You can, but even though it's a simple rectangle, it's not a bland done box. You can do simple layouts. Well, we've got that up there. The roof form came about because we needed to collect all our own water. We were in a bushfire area, not severe bushfire. As you can see over the back of the house there are some tall trees in some remnant forest over the other side of what was the farm lane, but that's quite a way away. We were building in the middle of a sheep paddock. So bushfire risk, yes, not severe, but something to keep in mind. And I wanted to come up with an expression of a building which integrated the solar appliances. I didn't want to come up with a jewel of an object and then say, oh bugger, I've got to put some tilt frames on top of it to put the solar appliances on. So that roof form came about with those things in mind. And there's one length of rafter on one side, there's one length of rafter on the other side, same for the length of the roof sheets. The roof sheets are all just, you take them up there, you don't need to cut them or trim them, you order them to length, whack them up there. There's no hip roof where you've got to trim 45-degree angles and throw half of a sheet, cut end of a sheet away. You haven't got the time involved and labour on site doing that sort of cutting and trimming. if you limit the amount of labour involved by keeping things simple, you will build more cost effectively. It does have a central gutter, and some people say, "Ooh, box gutter, no. Couldn't possibly do that." So I say, no, it's not a box gutter, it's a lap pool. It's a metre wide. It had to be designed by a civil engineer because you can't design something like that out of the standard code tables. We had to get approved by a civil engineer, but 240 square metres of roof goes to one downpipe at the west end. There are no downpipes all around the house. There are no drains dug in to connect them up. It all just flows to the west end, one downpipe into the 80,000 litre tank. And in the 8.5 years that we've been there, it has an overflow system, and I can tell you it works. It's overflowed twice. We've had deluge conditions 2 times in 8.5 years where the one downpipe wasn't sufficient to cope with the capacity to go into the tank, and it has overflowed, but it certainly didn't come into the house.
How big's the downpipe? 90
mil. Pipes that are full, and I'm not a civil engineer or a fluid dynamicist. When a pipe is full, the capacity is exponentially better than if it's not quite full. Yeah. Simple plan, rectangular. Major features, again, it's a stuck record. Living rooms, bedrooms as much as possible on the north side, service rooms on the south side. The one thing that is not standard in other people's designs, but certainly is standard in our work, is little room number 5 next to the number 4, which is the pantry, is a cool cupboard. It has a 90 mil storm, another bit of 90 mil storm water pipe from under the deck at the entrance there, which is a cool shady place around the house. And comes in through the floor of the cool cupboard, and then another pipe out through the ceiling of the cool cupboard. You just get a natural convection flow with cool air coming from the coolest, shadiest spot around the house, and providing a regulated cool space, which then means you don't need to have as big a refrigerator. We store apples, potatoes, garlic, all of those long-term storage things without needing to have them refrigerated. It's also really good for booze, and the more booze you have in there the better, because that provides thermal mass. So again, if you're talking to anybody about a new house or doing some renovations, keep a cool cupboard in mind. They work a treat, and it's a really simple thing to do. And going back to the picture, that thing about thermal chimneys again, those highlight windows in the living dining room, 4 of those are hopper sashes. A hopper sash is a window that is hinged on the bottom and slopes out, instead of an awning sash which is hinged on the top and provides some weather protection. But when you're under an eave like that, you don't need the weather protection. And what that means is it flops out. I've got a 10-degree ceiling, like warm air is rising up along the slope of the ceiling, and it has the least resistance to flowing out. So a thermal chimney is easy with a 2-storey stack. It needs just a little bit more consideration, but it is possible in a single-storey building. The other thing which actually isn't shown on that schematic sketch, that was just is an easy diagram to read, but there's a little flap next to the front entry door, which opens up, just a little small door, and again, not shown in that diagram, is a water feature just beside the front door there. in summer we run a pump on that which creates a slight evaporative effect. You open the flap, have the evaporative effect going, and you draw air in through there and then out through the highlight windows as part of that night purging thing. None of these things are the silver bullet, but the more of these sorts of things that you can integrate into a design, they just incrementally improve the way it's going to work. The summary of all of that is we've got a 3.5 kilowatt PV system. It's running at 4,500 kilowatt hours per annum, which when I wrote this slide a little earlier this year, I said we're generating 130% of what we consumed. I just ruled off my end of financial year annual summary, and this year we're actually up to 135%. It's an all-electric house, except for a wood boiler. But we've got pumping, we've got pressure pumping for the water supply, we've got pumping for the slab hydronic heating system, we've got pumping for the evacuated tubes to get into the tank because the tank's below the tubes. So there's a bit of extra electrical demand there that you might not have in a suburban situation. And the black water treatment is a worm-based system which has a little aeration pump in it as well. We've got dishwasher, clothes washer, induction cooktop, electric oven, sandwich toaster, kettle, every electrical appliance you could possibly think of. Most of them were purchased about 8 years ago, so they're reasonably efficient. There are some available now that might be a little bit better. Interestingly, we export about 75% of what we generate and during the day, and then we import about 65% of what we use, which is at times when the sun's not shining. But it's clear that once the premium feed-in tariff is gone in 2023, I'm just totally confident that we've got a situation where we can buy some batteries and be totally self-sufficient off-grid. We've got 60 evacuated tubes for the hot water for 7 months, 8 months of the year. That provides all the domestic hot water. For the few cooler months of the year, we've got a boiler, an Italian boiler, which is the backup for the domestic hot water and also for coils in the floor. Last year, every bit of timber I brought into the house, I put in a cardboard box sitting on the bathroom scales, and I measured every kilogram of timber that we brought in, which was the missing link in understanding the total energy equation for the house. I brought in 1,426 kilograms of timber last year, which was all we needed for the winter hot water and heating of the house. And I'd suggest to you that that's not a lot, and my understanding of calorific conversion rates is that that's about equivalent to a heat pump doing the hydronic hot water, sand and heat pump, of using about 1,000 kilowatt hours of electricity, which is what we've got in headspace in that sort of that 30-35% of extra generation that we use, that we produce, that we don't use. So that then confirmed that our 3 kilowatt system in fact is generating 100% of the electricity or the energy that house arrangement uses. So I think it's good, and we can also potentially buy some more PVs and whack them on if we want to at a later date. We don't need to at the moment, but yeah, that house, and it's probably only rating at about 7 stars. It was designed 10 years ago. A lot of that north-facing glass is only single glazed, and at this time of the year, yesterday, shorts and t-shirts in the living room yesterday afternoon, and it was -4 when we got up in the morning, but as soon as the sun starts to come in, that radiant warmth, so there's the understanding of the difference between thermostat heat settings and your comfort due to the radiation off different surfaces. If your walls are radiating cold onto you, you feel it. If you're just getting that sun coming through early in the morning, the air temperature doesn't need to be 22 degrees because you've just got this beautiful warmth coming with the radiant heat that's coming through the windows. So yeah, yesterday afternoon, 25 in the living room in the afternoon. The NatHERS software would have turned the cooling on because it says your house is getting too hot in winter. Obviously, we don't have air conditioning. We don't need it. We've got ceiling fans in the bedrooms, which we operate last year 2 nights of the year. No need for any cooling. Yes, I think I've been reasonably successful in spending my own money, and that's the premise. It's knowledge that makes the difference. You don't need to spend money, you just need to know what you're doing. Thanks.
Questions, Tim?
Yeah.
I've got a specific question and then a general one. But the specific one is, I'm one of those people that likes to sleep with all doors and windows open, no matter what time of year it is. What do you do about air exchange? I mean, you were almost there with your cool room. But I need a house that's constantly changing air, but I don't want to affect the thermal property.
Yeah.
And that's the first part.
Yeah.
Second part is, how are the stars measured?
Yeah, well, it's the megajoules per square metre. Yeah, so answer the first part. If you want all that fresh air, and at this time of the year, and it's minus something outside, the house won't work with the windows open. What you can buy today are heat recovery ventilation systems. So you have the windows closed, in fact, but you have a device which brings the cold air in. It passes it through a heat exchanger, and the warm air goes through the heat exchanger and is exhausted out of the house. There's the transfer of that heat into the incoming air, and that gives you lots of fresh air and reduces the amount that you might lose. The other part, as I said, megajoules per square metre is an assessment of how much energy you need to maintain a comfort within a thermostat setting, which as I said before, varies depending on which part of the country you're in. The temperature setting is higher in tropical areas than it is down south. But in Melbourne, for instance, it's between 18 and 24 in living areas, between 7 o'clock in the morning and 12 o'clock at night. So all those assumptions are in there about what constitutes comfort in different climate areas. It understands that you cook with your kitchen appliances at night, and you can when you see the data in there is extraordinary. You can actually extract the temperature in every room of the house for every hour of the year.
So it's solely about thermal matters.
Thermal performance of the building envelope.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of those box gutter people. I mean, I think you should lose all your stars for having a box gutter.
Well,
they all fail.
No, well, it doesn't.
It will.
No, it's proved that it doesn't. It overflows. There's an overflow system. So when there's been a deluge and it's too much for that 190 mil downpipe, it just flows off down the garden. Yeah. It doesn't come into the house.
But on the other drawings you showed us, there were box gutters all over the place, and they weren't like that. They weren't like your.
No, but if they're open, yeah. But I'm confident that I can design gutters that won't cause water to come into the house. They've got to be open-ended. Yeah. Lots of people don't install them or design them properly.
My question relates to the 6-star rating or 8-star rating. As I understand it's a 6-star design or an 8-star design, which is a house that's being made, but what the client gets after the builder's taken over is something well short of 6-star. Shouldn't the effort be put into ensuring that the output for the client,
Yep.
what he gets,
Yep.
is actually 6-star or 8-star?
Totally legitimate.
How do we do that?
Well, so there was a detailed study done, commissioned by government in Canberra, carried out under the South Australian government, who engaged Pitt and Sherry to do the work. It identified exactly that what we've been building it leaves something to be desired in a lot of instances, not everywhere, but in a lot of instances. So that work has been done, the problem has been identified, the remedies are not happening all that quickly, but they are happening. In Victoria, there's been a new registration system introduced by the Victorian Building Authority, which has caused a situation where ongoing professional development for all registered building practitioners will need to be verified every 5 years. Up until now, builders, tradesmen got their qualification and their operating certificate, and that was it for the rest of their life. And that's been a huge problem, that the people on the ground did some training 10, 20, 30 years ago, got no idea what all this means, how insulation needs to be installed to work properly. Is there anyone here from any of the large building organisations, HIA or MBA? They have been intransigent up until recently in saying that any compulsory ongoing professional development was not to be considered, and they've been totally powerful in that regard. The Institute of Architects, the Building Design Association, the Pool and Spa Association, anybody you'd like to name potentially I'm aware of, we're in a forum that said, yeah, compulsory CPD for all practitioners, yeah, good to go. The MBA at the time got up and said, we're bigger than the rest of you combined, bugger off. That's changing because that was when the Building Commission was in place. They've been replaced by the VBA. There's a lot of discussion about how potent the VBA are with regard to fire-rated cladding. But one thing has happened is they've introduced this 5-year anniversary for registration of everyone, and to get your registration renewed in 5 years' time, you will have had to have shown that you've at least been doing some sort of enhanced upgrade of your knowledge base.
I would probably just add to that. I'm an energy rater, and I've had 2 buildings that I've rated where the owner has managed to open the wall at some point before taking occupancy and discovered the insulation specified is not in the wall. And when confronted with the builders have said, well, I've always put in R1.5, I don't know anything changed. Because there's no inspection before the wall's sealed off. So I think the owner would pose that as well, but I think there needs to be more inspection points and people never accept that as a cost.
Yeah, well, at the moment, all of that, and again, we've got absolute clear examples of what it means with regard to cladding. The building system at the moment is not only self-regulated, and everybody who contributes it is responsible to do their work diligently and accurately and professionally. And they issue, for insulation, the building surveyors will ask the builder to provide a certificate from the people who did the installation to say that they did it properly. And so a certificate is issued, and at the moment that's near enough's good enough, and it's not checked. Where that falls apart is when somebody says, oh, I thought I was getting a 6-star house and I've got huge heating bills, and then they get somebody who can now attach a thermal imaging camera to their smartphone and photograph the wall, and you can very quickly see, not necessarily if there's no insulation, but you can see whether there's variation to indicate whether some insulation hasn't been put in as effectively as it should have been.
Bit of self-interest on this question. Just after your opinion on the viability of bringing existing housing stock up to some reasonable standard.
Yeah. Well, there's the Beyond Zero Emissions building study.
Is it viable?
Yeah. No, it can be done. So, poor old pink bat screen was one of the best things that could possibly have been done. Putting in cold climates anyway, putting some insulation on the ceiling is the first thing that you do, because the heat loss through a ceiling in a cold climate is a huge part of the energy profile. So the way that was the best idea was just poorly executed. So yeah, insulate on the ceiling. Insulate if you've got a timber floor and you can crawl under it. There are products that you can easily put in to insulate under a timber floor. There's a polystyrene product which compresses and you put it in between the joists and it holds itself in place. That's pretty good. Old houses with fixed vents, seal them all up. Don't need them.
I guess part of the question is what sort of reasonable ultimate star where do you like them to get out of? It's like going to be a 5 or 6 star. Do you reckon you can get to an 8 star?
It depends on how bad that existing fabric is, and then whether you're actually doing alterations and additions to it. So, in our experience, what we talk to clients about is if you're putting an addition on and a very standard understanding of what that would be is, okay, we want a new kitchen family room out the back, and so we say, okay, well, we're putting that new structure on, we'll make that work as absolutely at the best level that we possibly can. That's the space that you're spending your daytime waking hours in. That's the space that you want to be comfortable in for most of the time. The energy rating looks at the whole of the house for every hour of the year, and that gives us a benchmark to know how to compare one house with another. Again, in a situation where you're renovating, get the daytime living spaces working as best you can. If you go to a bedroom and it's a bit cool, well, get a thicker doona. You don't have to be have a dogma about these things to say the whole of a house has to work. You make it work as best you can for yourself. So there's middle ground in there.
I'm a bit of a canary, and I'm wondering how the 6-star system works with non-standard materials like timbercrete, like bentcrete, like cork rather than polystyrene.
Yep. It's getting better. Certainly with first rate, which most people use here in Victoria, there is for walls an addition to the program which was called the Wall Builder, which means that you can put absolutely any material into a wall and know exactly how it's going to work. You have the K value, the resistance value for any material. You know how thick it is. You can put it into that Wall Builder and make up any assembly that you want to.
I could just add to that, I've just finished the hempcrete one. I've done a couple of riders, one around Castlemate, and you get all those variations. And you can, as soon as you can just get confidence, you can put walls.
Yep. So yes, it can be done. As with any endeavour, some energy ratings are more experienced, have been doing it for longer, and are possibly better at doing it than others, but that's the same that you'll find with any person that you deal with.
You see a clear benefit for either lightweight construction or using thermal mass to get to 8, 9 and 10
Yeah, in cool climates, thermal mass is a great benefit where you can get passive gain in to heat it up. If you're in a situation in a heavily wooded site or in an urban site where there are a lot of buildings around and you can't get the passive gain in, then that thermal mass has to be heated by your appliances. So again, have general rules, but assess each project on its merits. And yes, I'm a firm believer, and with my house, my house has a concrete slab, but that's the only thermal mass in it. The rest of the walls are timber frame walls, but we get enough passive gain coming in and heating up that slab. But if you can't get enough passive gain, then yeah, be careful with the thermal mass. It can work against you. Yeah.
I'm afraid we're thoroughly out of time. I'm sure there are lots more questions. Tim, are you able to join us at the pub down the road? Okay, there'll be more questions. We were selling raffle tickets earlier for these 2 books in support of the BZD Radiothon. Tim, I wonder if you'd mind reaching inside and drawing out a little crumpled piece of paper.
I bought a ticket, so I hope I don't pull my own. I would need to put my glasses on.
Yeah, well,
Alan Smith.
Alan Smith is the winner. Okay, see us afterwards. Okay. So, all right, as we said, we'll wander down to the pub down the road. If you go down the ramp, it's the first pub on the right before the first set of lights. BZD is supported by what we call baseload supporters. These are people who provide a small amount of money each month. If you think what BZD is doing is great, and I do, I'd encourage you to support that. You can catch up on the YouTube recordings of these sessions at bzd.org.au/events/. There is a Facebook group that you might be interested in, My Efficient Electric Home. Lots of discussion and suggestions on how you can make your home more efficient. The next discussion group is on Monday the 7th of August, and this lecture theatre is not available. So we will be for next month only, at the Theatre 1 in the old Geology building across Swanson Street. When you get off the tram at the Melbourne Uni stop, roughly speaking, it's on your left. Over in the buildings. I have got a map here if anyone wants to have a look. And at that venue, our speaker will be Matt Grantham, who will be speaking about a utilities guide for brown to green transition. He'll look at a recent demerger of the world's largest investor-owned electric utility service based in Germany. See you next month.